Hello and welcome back to part 7 of my sky watching series of videos. And in this one, I want to do a bit of a show and tell of this application that I ended up making being a sub-project of my sky watching project. In the previous videos, I hit a bit of a roadblock in the way that I was processing the images captured by the cameras, and I thought I was going to look at it from a slightly different perspective. Rather than try to apply a mathematical model to what I've already observed, I thought I was going to use the well-defined mathematical models that show where the sun, the moon, and the stars are supposed to be, and then to recreate what the camera would see. That's what I talked about in the last couple of videos. But now I want to show the capabilities that I've added to this application. Some of these were added due to necessity, obviously, but some of them were added organically as I found more and more things that would make for some more interesting videos in the future. So there's a lot of feature creep that has developed, and here's the control panel. The first two are your geolocation with a slider bar so you can quickly dial in to where you want to be. Same thing with your longitude. The next 5 control where the camera is pointing and how it's oriented. So I can change the altitude of the camera, so I could be looking at the ground, I could be looking at the horizon, or I could be looking straight up. The next one controls the azimuth. I have 2 cameras and each one has a different zoom level, and it's a bit of a mess. I'm not going to go into details about that, but I do have 2 very cheap cameras and I dare not touch the settings, and each one has different zoom levels. So I had to adjust for a camera having a different zoom level than the other ones. There's also a little bit of a problem with the south-facing camera as far as I can tell. It seems that the summer heat melted the plastic and changed the alignment of the lenses, and I think that caused a change in aspect ratio, or it could be a manufacturing error and the cameras really are that cheap. And then finally, for the south-facing camera in particular, to be able to see the sun for the entire time of the year, I rotated it slightly so that it would catch a glimpse of the sun even at its lowest. I'm not going to talk too much about these 2 controls. I might remove them. The next controls allow me to change the time or change the day. So I can go back to 4 o'clock in the morning, for example. I could go ahead to 11 p.m. tonight. I can do something similar for the days. So I can scroll back throughout the last year, or if I really want to, I can manually type in 2 years ago. The scroll bars only go back 1 year, but I can go back even further than that. I'm going to zoom out temporarily a little bit so that you can see the sun throughout the entire cycle, but I added an animation mode. I can animate by day, by year, or by month. The others I think I'm going to remove because they're not that interesting. If I animate by day, you can see that it animates 1 frame per minute. If I change the animation mode to show what it looks like for the year, then each frame is 1 day. And it does that for several years. And last for a month, so it simulates, it's faster than by a day, but it's not quite by a year, and it goes for an entire month. So it'll go from today to February 6th. So those are the different modes. I have a few hidden features because I didn't feel like adding even more controls and make this control panel even worse than it already is. So I've got a couple of hidden features. If I add the @ symbol to watch an object, then it'll display where that object currently is relative to your location. And of course, if I animate it, that's fine. But I also have another mode. If I add an exclamation before the object, then it'll change the camera's altitude and azimuth to match the object's previous altitude and azimuth. And there's a little bit of an interesting artifact going on, possibly related to the Earth's tilt, but it doesn't keep that object dead center throughout the entire animation. You'll see that it starts to drift off of center as it starts to rotate and change direction. And then it'll kind of eventually sweep back to the center. I could choose the moon, for example. So that's where the moon is. This control will add a blue line where the watched object happens to have been for the last 24 hours, with a slight exception that if I want the stars, all stars, it turns it into a star trail for the last couple of hours. I could look at a specific star, so Sham, for example. Right there. I can turn on the ecliptic path mode, which will draw a line where the sun arcs across the sky throughout the entire year. And if I turn on the analemma mode, what it does is it shows where the sun is at the same time of the day for the entire year. I can turn on the graticule. I'm facing south right now, so these horizontal lines are the lines of right ascension, and the vertical lines are the lines of declination. I've got a little bit more work to do to fix this up and make it a little bit better. If you're first setting the camera up and you can't quite see the object, you're trying to line something up, I've got a viewfinder mode that lets you temporarily zoom out. The white lines, you can kind of see there's a white line right around here, and there's another white line right around here. That represents the maximum swing of the sun throughout the year. So the sun will go as high as here and as low as this in the winter. This would be useful if you're looking at an image from the camera, and I'm going to show that in a minute, but you can temporarily turn on or turn off the stars from being displayed. I've got a camera overlay that will go, and not this camera, I have to switch to this one. I can overlay the latest image that the computer has taken from the cameras, and it aligns the rendered image with the time that the camera took the image. So I can update this, and you can see that it just changed from 1122 to 1123, but I can keep clicking this for the next 50 some seconds until it grabs another image, and then it'll change the image. So camera overlay mode will lock on to that particular time. If I turn on the update live cameras, every time that it detects there's a change in the latest image that was taken from the cameras, it will re-render with latest time, although this is a bug. And this last one, save cameras, is more useful without the camera overlay. If I turn this on, then it's going to simulate a camera image being taken every minute, entirely rendered like this. There's also an animate mode with an external script file, so you could script something equivalent of load this image that was taken, set the time to this date, and then render the overlay and save it. I'm not going to demonstrate that in this video. Finally, if I go back a couple of days, I can scroll back to the night, And this is where this option really becomes useful. I can turn that off and it gives me a chance to see where the stars are. And if I go back, there's one here, there's one there. So that's Betelgeuse, and that's Procyon. You'll see that the alignment isn't quite right just yet. I kind of tweaked it as best I could. I think there is still a bit of a fisheye lens that I still have to correct, and that's going to be yet more calculations that I have to add to make the two match. But if I back up at this point, you'll see that Betelgeuse is now within the circle, and Aldebaran should be over here somewhere, and that one's a lot closer than this one was. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I'm going to be using this to start generating a few interesting animations. I hope you'll like a few time-lapse videos, and I'm hoping to start making some of those videos in the coming days and weeks. So look forward to that. That's it for now. So you know what to do, and I'll see you in another video soon enough. So bye for now.